Good morning to all the students. Today I will be talking about a very important concept in ecology which is called as the niche. When we talk about the niche, it is the ecological role that an organism is going to play in its given habitat. So before we talk about the niche, it is also important for us to understand what is meant by habitat. A habitat is a place that an organism is going to be living there naturally. It is going to be the place where it is going to find its natural mating partner, its breathing ground as well as the foraging ground. It is also the place where it is going to have its natural hiding place against the predator. It is also going to have plenty of resources which an organism really requires for its physiological activities, is going to act its behavioral activities there in that particular habitat. So it's a natural uh, dwelling place, is a natural place where an organism is going to be found living there. So I will say that this is the Arctic region where the polar bear is going to be living there. It is the Antarctic region where the penguin is going to be found there. It is the places in the Himalaya where the a particular predator, the snow leopard, is going to be present there. It is the place where the Royal Bengal tiger is going to be living there because it's the Sundarban Delta, or it might be the largest floating national park in the world called as the Kaibul Lamjau National Park, where the animal called as the dancing deer, also called the Cervus LDLD or locally called as Sangai, is going to be found there. So it is a habitat where an organism is going to be found living there naturally. But when we talk about the niche, it is the activity, it is the ecological role, it is how that particular organism is performing its life's activities in its given habitats. That is the reason why Odom have very rightly said that habitat can be called as an address of an organism. If you ask me where do you live, I will say that I live in this particular part of Manipur, in this particular part of Delhi, in this particular part of Kashmir, or I live in this particular part of, say, Kerala. The place where you are living is your habitat. But if you ask me, what do you do in Delhi? I'll say that I'm teaching here in one of the university colleges. I teach in Ramjas College, University of Delhi, in Zoology Department is my address. And where do you live in Manipur? I'll say that I live in Imphal or I live in Kaching. That's the place where I will be living there. But if you ask me, what do you do in Delhi? As I said, I teach here. But if I had been in my native place, what do? I might be a farmer there. I might be a fisherman there. So the role that you play in your habitat, in your address, in your living place is what we call as the niche. So when we talk about an organism, we were talking about the Sundarban Delta is a habitat of the tiger called Royal Bengal tiger. But if that Royal Bengal tiger is found living in one of the botanical garden or the zoological garden, and if you ever ask, what do you do there in Sundarban Delta, the tiger would be very, very confident to say that I am a predator there in that Sundarban Delta. So the trophic level that this particular animal occupies in its given habitat is what we call as a niche. Where do this particular hornbill lives? The hornbill lives in a tropical rainforest or in the thick forests of the northeastern India. And what do they do there? The hornbills will be very happy to say that, oh, I make nests in this particular area and I am taking care of the baby. I keep on I keep feeding on the tropical rainforest fruit trees. So that's the role that a particular organism is going to be performing there. If you see a barn owl in your grassland, and what does he do there? The barn owl will be saying that I'm a nocturnal hunter. So that's the role, that's the ecological role, that's the activity that an organism plays in its particular habitat is what we call as the niche. So niche is what this particular organism going to be doing here, what this particular organism going to be there, what is this organism going to be, okay, is going to perform, what kind of role that he or she is going to perform here is what its niche. So all of them may occupy the same habitat, but the roles might be different. For example, if you happen to go to any of the post office, you will find that there will be postmaster in the same building. There will be the students who come to post the letter would be also coming there. There will be people who measure the weight of your envelope or the parcels, and there will be somebody who is a clerk and entering everything that you have written there. And also there might be somebody who help you in bringing the stamps. All of us are living in the same post office, but the roles are different. So that also explain to us very simply what is meant by habitat and what is meant by the niche. What is the habitat of the polar bear? Oh, the northern region, the Arctic region. What does the polar bear do there in that particular icy world? So we'll say that the polar bear is a hunter, is a predator. So that is his role that the organism is playing in its habitat, that is the Arctic cold ice capped areas, or feeding or hunting the aquatic animals which live in that particular Arctic Sea, and by clinching on the iceberg which is floating there. So whatever it is, an organism, where it is found is what we call as an address, is called as a habitat. And what does that particular organism do in that particular area? The ecological role that an organism is performing there is what we will be calling as the niche of an organism. So it was very rightly said by Odom that habitat of an organism can be considered as the uh, as the as the address of an organism, and the niche is the profession that an organism uh, is owning in that particular habitat. So we'll be talking about this particular concept further, but I just want to make it clear that we are entering into the relationship between what we call as a natural dwelling place, or a place where an organism is naturally found, called as a habitat, and the ecological role that an organism plays in that particular habitat, called as a niche. The concept of niche was already known to Darwin, was already known to Joseph Grinnell in 1920s and 1928s. In the first part of the 20th century, people have already talked about this particular concept well, even in the 19th century. But uh, it was Charles Elton who have written a wonderful book called Animal Ecology, talks about niche as the trophic level, or is in the transfer of energy from one trophic level to another level in the food chain or the food web in a particular given ecosystem. The role that particular organisms performing is a producer, is a consumer, so is a predator, is a herbivore, is a niche. So he talks more about the more about needs in association with the energy transfer. But there are many other reasons. But fundamentally, it was Hutchinson in 1950s who came out with a beautiful concepts on niche. Niche is on hypervolume. Niche is not only about the place, it's about the role. It's not only about the predatory role that an organism plays, but it's also the time at which this particular role is being executed, at what scale it is executed, and which part of the resource is exploited by an organism is also what is called a niche. So the concept of niche is also going to help us in answering many of the organisms which competes in the given ecosystem, but they are able to coexist. So I started attempting to draw that particular concept by this particular diagram, but we'll be looking into details a little bit a while. Again, I have changed the board, where I have already attempted drawing some of the diagrams, and will be surely helpful in explaining what is meant by needs further. Uh, uh, my dear students, this particular small video is an attempt to make you understand further these particular concepts. Because of this particular COVID-19 and pandemic issue, we are unable to meet in the class physically, so I just have tried attempting this. And I'm not a professional who is very good in recording and others. This is just an extension of my love of the subject, and also to convey to you certain informations which I have gained by reading some of the books and my own field work. And this particular video has been made by a small and wonderfully very helpful camera, uh, mobile I have. It's 6 years old, and it's not very costly, very simple the technology. So there might be a lot of lacunae in it, so I beg your pardons, but please let's try to understand. You can also share me your queries when I share the video so that I can meaningfully answer you better. Yes, there are some of this particular work done by some of the scientists, an extensive field work in many parts of the world, and some of them that I really want to share here is, so this is the feeding niche. What is meant by niche? Sorry, we already know that niche is a particular activity or the activities that a particular organism plays in its habitat. So in this particular habitat, a particular bird which is called as a blue-gray gnat is trying to feed, is foraging in this particular ground. The size of the prey, so these are the insects or worms, so this particular prey length, it is measured in millimeters. So in the x-axis, this particular scientist have drawn the size of the food items that this particular bird is an insectivorous bird, so it is maximizing its particular consumption of a particular bird. It's collecting a prey. So the larger preys are good enough, very juicy, proteinaceous, it will be good enough. But the larger prey will be very difficult to hunt or might be taking more time to consume it. For example, if I give you a very large cake, it will take time. So all this, say 2 kilogram cake, even though it is wonderfully tasty, cannot be put in the mouth at one go. So you have to cut it into consumable sizes. But that particular cutting is a privilege that you and I get. But for an animal like the bird, who is also influenced by a lot of ecological constraints, the predators of the bird might be coming, there might be change in the weather conditions, the food available now may not be available after some times. So this particular bird is maximizing its prey consumption at, if you happen to look at this, so at around 4 millimeters, it's or if you draw a particular, so this is the line. For example, out of so many of the birds, more of the birds are maximizing the food which is of this particular size from 3 mm to 4 mm, and is also collecting this particular food items from the height. So for example, if I measured in feet, so for example 20 feet above the ground, not for example very high flyers, right? So this particular bird, so you will be saying that this particular birds will be very good enough if it is consuming a large size prey, but it is not. But few of them are doing, but very less. But more of these particular birds are feeding on a particular size at a particular height. So when we talk about this particular this this whole of this particular spectrum, if you look at it, is maximizing on this particular size at this particular size at this particular height. So for example, if I have to catch a particular insect while flying, so I would be surely thinking about how much energy would I be spending. Would I be very vulnerable to the attack of the predators? Can I also camouflage myself and consume this particular? Can I play the trick better here? Or will I be getting more dividends by investing less? So there's a lot of what to say, trials and errors, and now the bird is knowing that I should be maximizing here. So when we draw the niche, when we illustrate the role of a particular organism, that is the bird, in this particular habitat, I can draw the niche by using two of the dimensions. At what height is this particular bird feeding on? At which size the bird is preferring, it prefers to consume. So that is the representation of the niche of a particular bird which is feeding on the insect in a particular grassland or the forest, whatever it is, and the bird is maximizing here. So here a bird might be consuming one of this particular insect and rest for 2 days. Should have been done, but it is not profitable in the long run, because if the bird is feeding 2 times, so frequency increases, but doesn't matter, it's getting the food items and is also helping in the longer survival. It's not attacked by the predators, and that particular size of the prey is easy to handle, right? It's not running away, it's not strong enough to fly away from me or run away from me. So this is the representation of the niche by using two of the dimensions, what size you are consuming, at what height you are collecting, right? Suppose I'm walking in a particular area. At what time do you go? What type of walks do you, okay, prefer to do it? When I go to the market to buy a particular items or the vegetable, I go for those particular vegetable which looks clean and which is cheaper, and which is sold by somebody who is very good to talk about and is asking about my health, is asking about. So you have a lot of constants. You measure, you weight by using a lot of parameters. So when a particular bird is coming to a particular ecosystem to find its food items, the bird is also imagining many things. Okay, would I be vulnerable to attack this prey? Whether I will be getting more energy, or even if I consume the small little one, but the small little ones can be easily you can easily hunt them more frequently, but the problem is that it's not very tasty, it's not giving you good result, so it's better for me to handle this particular size. So what this particular organism performing at this particular time, performing at what particular height, which particular size is the niche. And that is the reason why if I plot this particular niche in 2 dimension, it does not tell us many things. At what time it is not telling, right? And it is also not telling us many things, okay? And to do away this particular problem, the scientist is trying to draw the niche of this particular bird in 3 dimensions. So you are also including the feeding frequency, and you are also including the height from the ground, and you are also including the prey size. So if you include it, you have a 3 dimensions. But these 3 dimensions will not be enough. I will be talking about at what particular reason this particular bird is more comfortable in the whole region of this habitat, right? And whether it prefers the male or the female, whether it prefers the one which is, okay, well symmetrical, whether it also sees whether humidity is important for collecting this particular food items at this particular height, or whether the sunshine is involved, the temperature of the day, whether it is important or not. So the presence of the predator here or not, which is not shown here, can be shown. That is the reason why Hutchinson in 1950s came out with this particular concept as niche as a hypervolume, niche as a multi-sided volumes, right? For example, if I do this, you required 2 coordinate x and y. Here you required x, y and z. But if I talk about the temperature, then you add another axis. If I talk about whether the predators are present or not, another axis. If I want to know whether this particular birds are expert in collecting the male insects or the female butterfly, Lepidoptera, or whatever it is, you have another X. So we know that a particular volume can be constructed by having 4 of these particular points, and a 2 dimensional figure like rectangle. But when I talk about the volume, you need 8 of these particular points in this particular Cartesian plane. But this 8 point is not enough. You need another one, you need another one, you need another one. At last you create a particular volume which is multi-sided or okay, this is what is called hypervolume. So when I talk about the niche, why do I take the class at this particular time? Because this is the time when my childrens are not having their online class and it's not disturbing. I don't have a very beautiful and the outside sound filtering microphones to take this video. I don't have an assistant who would be clicking the camera for me, so it is myself who is trying to handle it. But why do I do here? Because I cannot go to the college and take the class, but there will be a lot of protocols, there will be a lot of SOPs, but at home at least I maintain cleanliness, and at home at least I can manage my daughter when it gets up, would be what is that, taking her class in the bedroom. So my son for wants to take the class, then see he can go to the kitchen side for some time, right? So this is how I manage here, right? If you ask me why do I take the class here, but why do I take the class here can also be because I want to convey this particular message to the student, which I am unable to do when I have a Google Meet class, right? So So that's why, and also you can say that I do this because I love teaching this particular uh, part of the chapter. So there are a lot many things, and I'm taking here because I'm not in the hospital emergency room, right? I take this because my mobile has the enough battery to take this particular pictures, right? I can take this particular class like this because today morning is quite sunny, is sunny outside, and it's not very cold to conduct this particular class, right? And it is not very a late morning where a lot of stray dogs will be barking now, and the municipal van that collects the solid waste from the homes will not be coming here. So this is how, that's the reason why I take the class. And I take this class because this is the room that I have my books, so whenever I have some difficulties I can refer to the books and say to my students, right? So like this, when a particular crocodile is hunting in a particular salt water, the crocodile is going to think a lot of things. I cannot expose myself at this particular reason because many predators will not be able to be tricked. They will run away. So I should be hiding here, right? The water is very murky. I cannot be seen from outside by a particular thirsty wildebeest who is going to drink water from there. So many things. At what height the bird should be flying? Which particular prey should be the one that a tiger should attempt to hunt? For example, a tiger cannot hunt every deer that is there. The tiger is also smart enough which particular deer, which is weaker, which is a young one, because a mature Thompson gazelle is running and jumping so fast that a cheetah will not be able to run behind. So the cheetah has to identify that I eat deer, but this particular deer should be found at this particular that this particular reasons and should be of this particular health conditions. So this is how the cheetah. Otherwise, it will be level loss. You will be chasing a Thompson gazelles, but will not be able to hunt your prey. So a particular predator while hunting, a prey while grazing in a particular area has to imagine, has to access all those particular resources with a genuine consideration of when, where, how. So when we talk about the niche, niche is a multi-dimensional. It has a lot of access if you happen to draw in the form of a graph. So this is a simple illustrations of two dimensions. You are taking size of the prey and height, and this is so a particular niche can also be one dimension. If I take only about the size, then it gives you the one dimension. If you talk about the height at which it is collected, at what height a particular person is harvesting the honey that is making its hive on the wall on the sides of a particular slope, right? At what height should I go? Should I collect from the ground or should I go? And even if I go up, then at what particular height? To what extent should I be climbing? So those things are very important. So one dimension, it can be two dimension, it can be three dimension if you put the frequency, you put the height from the ground and the size of the food items that you consume. It can also be time at which you hunt this particular food items. It can also be talking about, is it sunny day or is it evening or it is a morning, or is it because the sound is coming or not, echolocation is able to be done properly. So many things are involved when we talk about the niche, right? So if you know the niche of an organism, conservation of that particular animals and plants will also be extremely will be seriously very easy. That's why this particular concept needs is also used by many of the conservationists, many of the people who want to restore a particular area. They try to know where are the habitats of these organisms and what are the niche of this organism. So we have seen many examples how a particular insect which have exploded in population in some orchard gardens, we control them not by introducing a lot of insecticides and pesticides. Nowadays we use what we call as biological controlling agents. For example, you try to find out where this particular organism naturally found and what are their natural controlling agents, the predators, and we catch hold of those particular predators or the insectivorous or any of the beetles who could control a particular insect. So you release it and this organism will be feeding on them, and so it's a biological controlling agent. We talk about it is not it based on the concept of habit and habitats. Sure, it is. So we'll continue with few more of the diagrams that I have made. So just hold on a few moment. So coming back to the discussion on the needs, let me also give you one very interesting ideas. Let me see whether it's yeah. So when we talk about the needs, one the very interesting thing is let us try to draw the needs of an organism by using only one dimensions. So I just want to know how much you are consuming, let's say, right? Or which particular regions of the habitat you are exploiting the resources. Suppose this is the habitat of an organisms, it is a particular grassland or the forest or and wetland. So this particular organism A is consuming the food here like this in this particular regions. So sometimes we talk about this is niche height, and sometimes we said that they from here to here can be called as the niche width, niche breed or the niche width. We talk about it. So this is nothing but uh, the reasons, the areas where this particular organisms can roam around and consume. It can also be one. It can also mean the size. So it started consuming the food items from say 1 gram to say for example so 250-gram weight. So it can be any. So this is one dimension. So we talk about the niche weight is how much of this particular resource that it is exploiting, at what frequencies, and others will come in the other axis. But here I'm talking about one dimensions only. Let's say it is working on the southeastern side of this particular grassland. Another organism is also here who is also living in this particular ecosystem and is consuming the food items at this. So it is on the south, this in the southwestern part of say A, consume the food items mainly from the south western side to the eastern, and this particular organism called the species B is feeding on the same grass in the similar type of the grass in the grassland, and is consuming the food items on the south eastern side of this particular ecosystem. But here we find a particular region where this particular two species A and B will be coming together and will be meeting here. Okay, so this is the place where two of these particular organisms will be hunting together, will be consuming in this particular area. So these are the place where these two organisms are showing their chances to be shown by the observer. So we observe them to be coming here. It might be one reason where a water hole is there, spring is there, and an animal while thirsty is coming and drinking water from these particular reasons, right? So when we talk about two of these organisms, these reasons where the needs of two species are okay joining each other or they are shadowing each other, this is what we call as the niche overlap. So niche, so there is an overlapping of the niche of this particular two organisms. So if you look at this particular graph, you now see that the feeding niches of the two species in one dimensional resource axis. So this is the resource axis. Let's say is the mass of the prey, and this particular species A and this particular species are feeding on it. And here in this particular case, you find the shaded region is called as a niche overlapping region. So niche overlapping takes place. If the niche overlapping takes place, then definitely there will be competition, strong competitions will be there. So if you keep on what to say this particular overlapping more and more and more and more tighter, then one will be completely overshadowing the others, and at that particular time we will see the feasibility of the Gauss's exclusion principles would be there. That means one which is stronger will eliminate the others. So there will be no coexistence. Now the question is, when two of the organisms are overlapping each other in this area, but they are not excluding each other in this ecosystem, both of the species are living together. What might be the reason? The reason is, in this particular case, A can also exploit those particular prey which are not very heavy and large, but this particular bee is specializing on the bigger one, which this particular A will not be able to handle, for example. So in a given ecosystem, two of the competing individuals are existing together. Definitely it might be because of certain amount of differences in their niche, right? This is what we call as a Nitch differentiation. So, but when this particular B is not there, A can also be coming up to here, or the B, when A is not there, can also go there. So when a particular competitor is not there, the niche size of a particular organism can expand. But when the competitors is there, there is a contraction of the niches can also take place, right? So these are very interesting. So Gauss's exclusion principle talks that suppose I want to eat one particular cake and you also want to eat the cake, and both of us want to eat the same cake which is in a particular cake parlor, or a shopkeeper is keeping only one cake. The shopkeeper will say that I have only one, but I have to give to one of them. And I said I'll pay more than the other person's. The other person also says that I will be paying double what I am going to pay. So um, then I said I will also pay you much more than. At last, it may result into the fight, and no one would be able to eat it. Or even if the person is eating is the person who is stronger, who is capable of getting that particular food, right? But how do we solve that issue there? Suppose if I say that I will be eating this part of the cake, I will be eating the icy topping of the cake, I just want to eat the cherry which is there in this cake. I want to suppose, for example, in India we tend to eat this particular food items called samosa, which is a very interesting partner of the warm cup of tea. And especially in the winter days now, in the evening, many students tend to go out and have samosa. So there is only one samosa, and one student wants to eat the samosa, another one also wants to eat the same samosa. So you will be fighting each other. But to solve it, there might be some other person who wants to eat only the inner part of the samosa. This is what we call as if samosa is a cell, then it's talking about the uh, cellular contents. Somebody would be wishing to eat the outside covering of the samosa more. For example, I have my friend who exploit the outside only, and I am the person who always wants to eat inside of it. So whenever we go for a cup of tea and a samosa, one samosa will be enough and there will be no fight. So same is the case. If an organism is exploiting this particular area, this organism can go on this particular site, but this organism cannot fly up to here, cannot run up to here, so both of them can coexist. But this coexistence will be a problem if a particular niche of the A is completely shadowing the A and the B, both of them are here, so A will survive, B will not, or the B will survive, A will not. So coexistence will be very difficult. But coexistence are there in nature. There is only one planet Earth, but there's so much of the diversity we have is not it because when the resources are limited, we try to exploit the resources in different manner at different point of time. That's why the coexistence is possible. Suppose I want to sit in this chair and my wife also wants to sit in this chair. My children also wants to hang on this particular chair. Then what I can do is I can sacrifice the chair in the evening where the wife will come and do her study, my daughter will come and do her study in the afternoon. My son can use this particular chair for her walk at a certain point of time when this particular seat is not occupied. But if all three of us, if four of us wants to, then must be capable of bearing all their weights on them. And to do the class, just imagine my daughter is sitting here, my son is sitting here, my wife will be sitting on top of me. Will I be able to do this? Will I be able to conduct this? Absolutely not. But in this particular small room in Delhi, in this particular small chair that I'm sitting on, we all are capable of coexisting because we are differentiating. Suppose tomorrow, if I if I started talking to my daughter and the son all about ecology and niche and things like that, my daughter wants to buy a stationary item. I said the niche overlapping, and she will be very happy to say that, Papa, you please get out of this room and do your ecology somewhere else. I need a stationary item to complete my assignment. So I would be talking to my mother and I will be completing. So you please go happily. So when at home, I have to add the role of a father, the role of a husband, the role of the son of a mother or the son of a father, then only we are existing. In your joint family, for example, if everyone is acting like you, if everyone is acting like the principal in a particular college, I think there will be a chaotic situations. Somebody act the role of a teacher, somebody act the role of a student, somebody act as a role of the staff, admin. And that's how this particular institution is running, right? So niche overlapping is there, then competition will be so strong, then each one of them try to eliminate each other. The one which is stronger will survive, the weaker one will go away out of this. So that is nature. So in nature, niche overlapping has to be reduced. And how would you reduce it? By exploiting different reasons. And how will you exploit? By running faster, by running slower, by developing a particular morphological structure that can suck the nectar from a particular floral tube, and by developing a particular big size which will be responsible for cracking the nut. So that means niche differentiation can be exploited by by going to this particular access at different times, or accessing to this particular resources by developing newer forms, newer behavior, right? Novel structures have come into pictures. So this is what is called niche differentiation. Sometimes we call it character displacement. The morphology of a particular organism changes to exploit a particular resource better than the others. So in the Galapagos finches, for example, if you measure the size of the beak by a Werner caliper, the sizes are different, and the different in the size is responsible for adapting those particular finches to different islands, different food items. Instead of being going into extinction mode, it is surviving by developing different structures. But it did not come in a single day. It might have taken so many days, so millions of years to come to that particular characters, right? So niche overlapping is reduced by niche differentiation. You exploit different reasons. You exploit at different scales and different masses and different times. So the multi-dimensional niche that we talk about is attained by an organism to exploit a resource in a better way. So we talk about generalists, we talk about specialists. So organisms tend to specialize their niche to exist with the other competing individuals. So this is one very interesting illustrations. I will be sharing another illustrations to make the point even more clearer. Thank you. Just wait for a few seconds. Yes, coming back to the concept of needs, now let us try to differentiate between fundamental needs and the realized needs. When we talk about the fundamental needs is the total size of the food item that an organism can consume, the time at which this organism can consume, is also the range of this particular resources that that organism can easily exploit. So the maximum size, the maximum frequency, the time, everything, if you talk about in the multi-dimensional scale, but let us talk about one particular dimension only to understand this concept. So a particular organism called the species A individual can go to every region of this grassland to exploit the food items, right? So this is the maximum size of the range at which this organism will be able to collect its food item. So the maximum size of the niche that an organism can attain when there is no predators, when the environment is ideal and the competition is very, very less, then we know that this is what is called fundamental niche. So fundamental niche is the maximum size of the niche that an organism can attain when there is no competitors, when there is no predators, when there is no other extra efforts that an organism uh, has to has to what to say execute, no extra efforts that an organism has to give uh, to prevent itself from the risks of any sort. That is, here is what is called as a fundamental niche. Suppose now an organism which is B has come is also a grazer. When this particular A is there, now they started competing, and B can also go in and around here, can consume, but because of the A, because of this elephant, the rhinos is not coming here. Because of this rhino, for example, the A is unable to enter in this particular area. Even if it is entered, the A has to, or the B has to spend some amount of energy to fight against the competitors. So when this organism knows that why should I be executing, why should I be spending more energy fighting and risking myself when I have resources at this particular reason to consume. So when a particular competitor is coming in an ecosystem, the size of the niche that A occupied now is reduced. This area is not, but when B is not there, A can come and occupy here. So the whole of this particular range that A can consume or A can exploit, the whole of this particular dimension of the niche that B can enjoy when there is no A, when there is no B by A, when there is no A by B, this is called as a fundamental niche. But when we talk about the realized niche or the ecological niche, is the niche that this A is occupying when B is present. So when the competitors are coming in an ecosystem, the dimension of the niche of an organism is contracted. And when the other competitors are not there, the dimension of the niche can be expanded, right? So the maximum expansion will take place till it reaches what we call as a fundamental niche. And the ecological, the realized niche is the niche that an organism is sowing or is playing at that particular point of time. I'll give you a very crude example from here, which you should not give in your exam, just to understand the concept. In this particular room that I occupy, um, I'm occupying right now here, but this room can also be occupied by many. Suppose, for example, if other people keep on coming in this room, then I will be now sitting. I might be standing after some time, right? At some point of time, I may run away from this particular area too. But when too much of the crowd is not there, I might be able to occupy this particular chair comfortably. So a particular tiger will be hunting the prey here and there, fundamental needs. But when the lion is a herd of other or the pack of wolves is coming in this particular area, the tiger may not be able to venture there or will not bother venturing here, would be feeding on this because it will be a level loss or a group of those hunters might be disturbing a sole tiger, the lion, right? You might have seen in many incidents how a group of hunters, a pack of wolves, or the hyenas, for example, when they make a group, sometimes they can even bulldoze a single lonely predators, right? So fundamental needs and the realized needs, the difference is fundamental niche is the maximum size or the maximum niche that a particular organisms will be attaining when there is no predators, environmental condition is better, the resources are plenty, no competitors. But when there is a competitor, then the niche size is contracted and realized niche is shown. So at what time, at this particular point of time, at this particular site, an organism is performing its niche is its realized niche. But when we take up all the points, all the space, all the food items, different grades of food items at the different times that it can go. If we accumulate all of them, then you can draw what is called as the fundamental needs. So we also, as a citizen of India, we have fundamental duties, right? We have fundamental rights. Fundamental rights is the rights given to a citizen. We can play this. We can enjoy our fundamental rights and everywhere at any point of time. But during an emergency, at a certain conditions, you also should know that you have fundamental duties. I can sing, I can shout, I can preach, I can also do a lot of things where a normal citizen can do, but a normal citizen also is prevented to what to say, disturb the others, right? I cannot shout and shout. Suppose exam is going on and I cannot come and I cannot shout ecology there when you are having your what is it, examinations. I am prevented to do that particular activities because to write and craft beautiful answers in a silent uh, conditions during the exam in the exam hall is a fundamental right. So sometimes, so during an emergency, for example, my fundamental rights will be curtailed because I have fundamental duties to abide by the rules and regulations, right? So that's the difference between the fundamental needs and the fundamental what to say size. Then you have the fundamental needs different from the realized needs. Realized needs are smaller, right? The realized needs will be equivalent to the fundamental niche size when there is no predator and resources are uncompeting and plenty. Just we'll have one moment break. Welcome back. There was a break in between. The laundry uh, person was coming or was collecting the clothes to wash, and my kids' online class was starting and have to attend the setting of the gadgets. But anyway, now let me just continue by sharing a very interesting thing. Niche differences, or the differentiation rather. So it will be better if I say this as niche differentiation. So the niche differentiation increases the diversity. I was talking about there is one planet Earth, there's a polar bear, there is the penguins, and a tropical rainforest, different types of plants, and coral reefs. So all these particular organisms, their habitats are different. And in their given habitats, again, there is a lot of differences in the way that they exploit the resources again. So let's give this very interesting example. In the Mojave Desert, people have work, and there are a lot of interesting papers which I will be happy to share in the class. But for the time being, let me just take a very simple illustration to explain the resource partitioning of the niche differentiation helps increase the diversity. In this particular desert, one of the most limiting resources is called what we call as the water. Water is a limited resources. Water will also be one of the, so the water consumed by a particular plant like mango, the water that is consumed by a coconut is going to be same. So it's used for photosynthesis, it's used for transport of the food items and the minerals. So now this particular bird, this plant, which is herbs, and they are peripheral, they are ephemerals, they grow for quick time and complete the life cycle so quickly. They collect the water with the help of the fibrous root that's sprayed in the subterranean, in the very shallow area of the soil. And this particular plant, which is perennial, for example, shrubby plant, which have a woody stem and started branching very close to the ground, have a taproot system to trap the water from this particular. So here this organism is collecting the water from this particular region, here slightly deeper, and this particular tree is going to have the taproot system and other branching the roots here, and is going to exploit the water from the water which is there stored perennially here. And this particular plants might be collecting the water by spreading the roots far and wide in the shallow area of the soils. So this is something that represents how the resource, that is water, is partitioned by different organisms by developing different rooting system to live in this particular habitat. So for example, in 1 square kilometers in a tropical rainforest, you are going to find some of the emergent tree which is very tall, and you are going to find the herbs which is on the floor of the forest. You will find some of the canopy trees. All of them are occupying the same area, all of them need water, and they don't consume the water that is directly falling on the lips. Even though it's a tropical rainforest where there is no doubt of rainfall, they are going to collect the water from the ground. So how do they manage it? Definitely by partitioning the resources. So resource partitioning, differential exploitation of the resources by character displacement, by changing the morphology, by changing the behavior, by changing the time at which you exploit the resources, an organism can exist in a particular area. So specialization is also important, but specialization can be executed only when you develop a particular skill or you develop a particular tool to exploit it, and that's how the character displacement comes into pictures. So very interestingly, because of this particular different height, so the pollinators are also different. Some of these particular plants will be exploited by hornbills, some of these particular plants will be exploited by beetles, some of these particular plants might be exploited by the lepidopterans, or by the moths and butterflies sucking the nectars, mining the lips which are softer. All these things help in specializing. Suppose, for example, if I go to the hospitals, in hospitals there will be a department of the bones, department for childbirth, department for immunization, department which takes care of the emergent situation, departments which will be taking care of the operation of the heart, for example, right? So all these departments are handled by the people who have an expertise. It's not done by a generalist, for example, right? So specialization and to operate the herd cannot be done by a simple tool that you use for the post-mortem of a particular dead body. It has to be done by somebody who knows that particular art and trade and who knows how to handle the tools and how to make use of those particular equipments. Same is the case, this particular plants might be developing different chemicals that can defend from different herbivores. These plants might be developing certain chemicals that will be responsible for attracting the pollinators because they might be competing for pollinators also. So different smells, different colors, different patterns of the flower, all these things is not at the way that the plant have developed, that have evolved to gain the access of those particular benefactors or those particular organisms which will bring benefits to them in terms of pollination, in terms of spreading the seeds and propagules to reduce the competition. So reduction of the competition is one particular targets of the evolution. That's what we have observed. And how do they reduce the competition when the resources limited? By developing different niches, right? So that is the reason why niche is one of the very important fundamental characteristics. So now I would be sharing this particular illustrations. Let's see whether, I hope you will be able to see this clearly, right? So last, I just want to share this. It's visible to all of you. This is important because this particular diagram will explain you the concept of microhabitats, and this particular diagram also gives us the wonderful message that niche differentiation, specialization of the habitats, and special act that you perform there in that particular habitat is surely going to increase the diversity. So this particular plant might be a very monotonous looking plant. It might be a leguminous plant, let's say. A leguminous plant have got the root nodules, and the root nodules are responsible for hosting the nitrogen fixing bacteria like rhizobium. So if you ask the question, where do you find rhizobium? Rhizobium is going to be found here in the root nodules because they cannot be exposed to the free oxygen, which is very oxidizing, so they need an anaerobic environment, so they live there. And what do? They fix the nitrogen. And what kind of help do they get from this particular root? This root is providing the food items, but the root in turn is getting the nitrogen, which is one of the limiting resources, free of cost, or rather by not uh, hunting far and wide, is getting from this particular package of nitrogen that is harvested by the rhizobium. So rhizobium is found in the leguminous plant, but it is found in the root. If you climb a little bit up, you have those particular root nodes. For example, these are some of the fungus that lives here. Then you have the root galls, you have the bacteria here, you have the stem rod, then you have the leaf galls, tephorina, then perostenopora, which are specialized in the young leaves, then ovary galls, claviceps are found in the ovary. Then you have dispersed pollens are attacked by the chytrids, and the anthers smut by the botrytis antrophilia. So on the right side, try to attempt showing the habitat of the specialized habitat, specialized regions of the plant by different kind of microbes, different kinds of the fungus here. So this is about the habitat, but in the I'll say that the plant is the habitat, but at what height, at which region of the plant, that becomes very specialized. So a particular region of the habitat where an organism is situating can also be called as a microhabitat. So these are the microhabitats of the microbes. And here on the left side, you have the microhabitats of many of the insects that will be feeding on this particular plant at different heights, at different regions. For example, the root borer, you have the acnelus. Then you have the root galls by Kyoto rhynchus. Then the stem borer and the bark beetles that you have. Then some of the older leaves are exploited by the one which are specialized in the old leaves by the Lepidoptera. Then there will be gall formed by Neuroterus species. Then the young leaves are affected by the hemipterans. Then if you happen to go to the flower, then the pollens are affected by the mites and many of the beetles. So all of them are occupying different regions, different microhabitats of the plant. But if I ask, where do you find this particular butterfly? I said that this particular plant. At what height and where? I'll say that they are found in the flower, they are found in the roots, they are found in the leaves. So one particular plant, leguminous plant, in a forest is represented by one species of leguminous plant. But one leguminous plant, this habitat becomes the microhabitat, or there is a possibility of the differentiation or the resource exploitations in the differential manner. For example, you have not only one species of the plant here, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There are 17 of the different species are found in this particular, uh, there are 16 of this particular species of different species of the animals and the microbes here in this particular single habitats the uh, or the tree or the plant. Suppose if this is the habitat, you see the kind of exploitation, different reasons that uh, these occupants of the microhabitats are exploiting the resources. So if you consider this as a world and see or the global the biosphere, and then see the kind of different organisms which are feeding, which are exploiting the resources and are occupying the same space by differentiating the resources. So that explains how important the concept of the niche is. So definitely niche differentiation increases the diversity. All these particular diverse organisms might have not been possible to exist or coexist without adapting to different heights and different regions and specializing in different niches. So here we conclude uh, the basic concepts of the habitat and the needs, and I hope the simple explanations might be useful enough to uh, to make you enter into this realms of the beautiful concept of habitat and niche. So please remember, habitat is the place that an organism is going to be living there naturally, and niche is the role, the ecological role that an organism is going to play there. And niche is not only one dimension, it is multi-dimensional in nature. And remember, the differentiation of the niche, expansion and contraction and specialization of how they exploit the resources in different scales, different times, or different regions is responsible for increasing the diversity of the organism in a given habitat. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this small attempt uh, that comes from that comes from some of the work that has been done very seriously by some of the scientists. Thank you so much, and we'll meet in another class with another concept. Thank you so much.